their honeymoon when he stepped outside to take a business call. Moments later, an elderly man approached our table, terror written across his face. He slipped a folded note into my hand and whispered, "Your daughter's in danger. Get her out. Now." I didn't know who he truly was, or how dangerous the man my daughter had married might be. But something in that stranger's voice cut through every doubt. And when you're a father, you don't ignore that feeling. So I chose to listen. That decision saved both our lives. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you for being here. It truly means a lot. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what the temperature is like where you are right now. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. Just so you know, this story includes some fictionalized elements woven in for impact and insight. Any similarity to real individuals or settings is purely coincidental. But the message I'm sharing with you, that part, is meant to stay with you. It was a crisp October evening in 2024 when my world changed forever. I'd spent 28 years building homes across Seattle, teaching myself that stability comes from solid foundations and careful planning. Every beam I've placed, every wall I've framed, I've done with the certainty that proper structure keeps people safe. I thought I understood how to build a secure life for my family. Turns out, I didn't understand the first thing about the dangers that could walk right through your front door wearing a perfect smile. The restaurant was one of those places where the silverware costs more than my first truck. All soft lighting, exposed brick, and hushed conversations punctuated by the gentle clink of wine glasses. The kind of upscale Seattle spot where the city's professionals celebrate milestones over $30 appetizers. Emma had picked it, wanting to mark the end of her honeymoon properly. My daughter's always had excellent taste, inherited that from her mother. 3 weeks into her marriage to Ryan Mitchell, Emma was glowing in a way I hadn't seen since before my wife Sarah passed 5 years ago. That glow was everything I'd hoped for when I walked her down the aisle. Everything a father wants his daughter happy, settled, loved. So why couldn't I shake this knot in my gut? "Dad, you're doing it again," Emma said, catching me studying Ryan across the candlelit table. Her laugh was warm, teasing. Doing what? I tried for innocence. The contractor's stare, like you're checking if he's structurally sound. She squeezed Ryan's hand. "He's not one of your buildings, Dad." Ryan flashed that easy smile of his, the one that had charmed my daughter through a whirlwind 6-month courtship. "It's all right, Emma. Your dad's protective. I respect that." He raised his wine glass toward me. "Bob, I promise I'm up to code. Foundation's solid." Everyone laughed. I joined in, but that nagging feeling wouldn't quit. 6 months from first date to wedding. Everything had moved so fast, like a project with an impossible deadline. And Ryan had insisted on handling all the paperwork, the marriage license, the bank accounts, the insurance updates. Said he wanted to make it easy for Emma, didn't want her stressed with legal details. She'd signed everything he'd put in front of her, trusting him completely. That's what love does, I suppose. Makes you trust. Emma was describing their honeymoon cabin near Mount Rainier, her eyes bright with the memory when Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and something flickered across his face just for a heartbeat, like a crack appearing in smooth drywall. "I'm so sorry, honey," he said, already standing. "It's the Henderson account. I really need to take this." On a Friday night, Emma's disappointment was gentle understanding. That's my girl, always accommodating, always kind. Real estate never sleeps. Ryan kissed the top of her head. 2 minutes, I promise." I watched him weave through tables toward the entrance phone already pressed to his ear. The moment he stepped outside into the October drizzle, I felt it, that sensation of being watched. An elderly man at the adjacent table had been sitting alone since we'd arrived, barely touching his soup. I'd noticed him peripherally, You notice things when you've got a daughter. Silver hair, worn cardigan hands that trembled as they gripped a folded piece of paper. And he was staring at Emma with an intensity that made every protective instinct I had flare to life. The old man moved before I could react. He crossed between our tables with surprising speed, his movements urgent despite his age. I tensed, half rising from my seat, but he wasn't looking at Emma anymore. His eyes locked onto mine, and what I saw there stopped me cold. Terror. Pure, desperate terror. His hand shot out and grabbed mine where it rested on the table. His grip was ice cold and surprisingly strong. Before I could pull away, he pressed the folded paper into my palm, his fingers trembling against mine. Your daughter." He whispered, his voice barely audible over the restaurant's ambient noise. His eyes darted toward the entrance where Ryan stood visible through the glass. "Read this. When he comes back, you need to be gone." "What are you talking about?" I started, but he was already pulling away. "A father always knows," he said louder, now urgent. "Trust that feeling in your gut. Trust it." Then he was shuffling toward the exit, head down, moving like a man who'd just delivered a message he'd been terrified to give. "My dad." Emma's voice cut through my shock. "What was that about? Do you know him?" I stared at the paper burning in my palm. Through the windows, I could see Ryan wrapping up his call, starting to turn back toward the entrance. Maybe 30 seconds before he'd be at our table. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper beneath the tablecloth, hidden from Emma's view. The handwriting was shaky, but legible, written in blue ink. "Your daughter is in terrible danger. The man she married has ended lives before 3 women that I know of. He marries them, takes everything. Then they die in accidents. Check her bank accounts. Check her insurance policies. Check everything he's had her sign. They move fast once they start. There's an address below. Come tonight if you want the truth. Please, I'm begging you, get her away from him, now." Below the message, an address in southeast Seattle. My blood turned to ice. Dad. Emma's concern was real now. "You look pale. Are you okay?" I looked up at her. My daughter, my only child. The person I'd protected from every danger I could imagine since the day she was born. She was smiling at me, that same trusting expression she'd had at 5 when I'd taught her to ride a bike. 3 women. They die in accidents. Outside, Ryan was pocketing his phone, straightening his jacket, that practiced smile sliding back into place as he reached for the door. The paper weighed 1,000 pounds in my hand. 28 years in construction had taught me to recognize when a structure was about to fail. That moment, when everything looks fine, but every instinct screams danger. This was that moment. I looked at Emma's trusting face, then at Ryan returning through the crowd, his smile perfect and practiced. Every instinct I'd honed over 58 years told me we had seconds, not minutes. Sometimes a father just knows. I made my choice. The moment Ryan disappeared through that glass door, the clock in my head started ticking. 60 seconds, maybe less, before he'd finish his call and turn around. 60 seconds to convince my daughter to abandon her honeymoon dinner and trust a father's instinct over everything her heart was telling her. I didn't have time for subtlety. "Emma," I said, my voice cutting through her thoughts about the dessert menu. "We need to leave. Right now." She blinked, her smile faltering. "What, Dad? We haven't even..." "Now, sweetheart." I was already standing, pulling cash from my wallet and tossing it on the table. "We're going." "Dad, what's going on? Are you sick?" Through the window, Ryan's silhouette shifted under the streetlights. He angled back toward the entrance. 30 seconds, maybe less. I leaned across the table. "Emma, do you trust me?" She stared at me. "Dad, you're scaring me." "I know, I'm sorry. But answer me. Do you trust me?" Something in my voice made her really look at me. I watched memories flicker behind her eyes, every promise I'd kept, every nightmare I'd chased away. She nodded slowly. Yes, always. Then stand up and follow me. No questions. Not here. She glanced toward Ryan outside, then back at me. Confusion battled loyalty. But my daughter has never gone back on her word. Okay, she whispered, reaching for her purse. I scanned the restaurant mapping exits. Walking out the front wouldn't work. Ryan would see us the moment he turned around. I needed distraction. I needed movement. I needed chaos. There it was, the red handle near the restrooms. Fire alarm. 28 years in construction meant I knew the consequences. False alarm. Fines. Maybe worse. But my daughter's life was folded in the paper inside my pocket. Sometimes being a good father means breaking the law. Stay close, I said, gripping her hand. Dad, what are you? I didn't answer. I pulled her toward the wall. A waiter tried to stop me, but I was already there, my hand wrapped around the cold metal. For half a heartbeat, I hesitated. Then I pulled. The alarm exploded into sound, piercing, relentless. Strobes flashed, turning the elegant dining room into a stuttering nightmare of light and noise. For 1 second, everyone froze. Then panic. Chairs scraped. Glass shattered. People surged toward the exits in a single desperate wave. Beautiful chaos. I pulled Emma into the flow, shielding her with my body, steering us toward the glowing green exit sign over the emergency door. Dad, she shouted. What did you do? Saving your life, I yelled back. We hit the crash bar together and stumbled into the October drizzle. The alley behind the restaurant was narrow and dark, lit only by a flickering security light. The exit alarm joined the symphony, echoing against brick walls. Rain soaked us instantly. Emma stood there, breathing hard, eyes wide. Dad, she whispered. What is happening? Before I could answer, heavy footsteps pounded behind us. Emma, Ryan. I pulled her into the shadows beside a dumpster and pressed a finger to my lips. Through the open door, Ryan's silhouette appeared backlit by flashing lights. He stepped into the alley, phone flashlight slicing through the rain. Emma, louder now. Baby, where are you? The front of the restaurant must have been chaos, fire trucks evacuating diners, but he'd come to the back. How did he know? Emma trembled beside me. I felt her wanting to call out to fix this. I tightened my grip and shook my head. Ryan stepped farther into the alley. The flickering light caught his face. The worried husband was gone. What replaced it was cold and focused. His eyes swept the alley with predator calm. When they passed over us, I stopped breathing. 3 heartbeats. Then his phone rang. He swore and answered. What? No, I'm looking for them. I don't know, she just disappeared. Yes, with her father. The alarm went off. I'll find them. Give me a minute. His voice moved back toward the door. I waited 30 seconds, then pulled Emma from hiding. We moved quickly toward the far end of the alley. My truck was parked a block away. We reached the side street and I glanced back. Through the rain and flashing lights, Ryan pushed through the crowd, out front, scanning faces. For a second, his eyes swept our direction, and his face, God. The charm was gone. The warmth, the easy smile, the perfect son-in-law mask erased. In its place was something colder, patient, calculating. A man adjusting strategy after losing control of the board. Something that told me the old man's warning hadn't been paranoia. It had been survival. Emma followed my gaze and saw him too. Dad, she breathed. And this time there was no doubt in her voice. What did he do? I didn't answer immediately. The paper in my pocket felt heavier than steel. Not what he did, I said quietly. What he was planning. Her fingers tightened around mine as another fire truck roared past. Blue and red lights painted the street in violent color. He said he loved me, she whispered. I know. And you're saying... I'm saying we don't go back, I cut in. Not tonight. Not until I show you something. Behind us, Ryan turned in a slow circle, searching. His phone was back at his ear. His movements were controlled, not frantic. A hunter who knew his prey was close. My pulse hammered, but my mind was clear. He wasn't panicking. He was recalculating. Truck, I said. We moved. Fast, but not running. Running draws eyes. When we reached it, I unlocked the doors and ushered her inside. Rain drummed on the roof as I started the engine. Across the intersection, Ryan stepped off the curb, scanning the line of parked vehicles. For one terrible second, his gaze paused on my truck. Then another siren wailed, and a cluster of diners rushed between us, breaking his line of sight. I pulled into traffic. In the rearview mirror, I watched him shrink in the storm of lights and sirens. He stood still in the chaos, phone pressed to his ear face, expressionless. Waiting. Planning. Emma stared straight ahead. Silent now, the trust she'd given me settling like armor around us both. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Whatever game Ryan thought he was playing, he'd just learned something important. I wasn't an old man imagining threats in shadows. I was a father who'd seen the predator behind the smile, and I was done pretending I hadn't. My living room should have felt safe. Instead, every shadow seemed to hold a threat I couldn't name yet. We'd driven in silence, Emma staring out the rain-streaked window, while my mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. I'd check the rearview mirror every 30 seconds, watching for headlights that followed too closely, turns that matched ours. Nothing. But that didn't mean we weren't being watched. The house was dark when we pulled up, just like I'd left it that morning, when the biggest worry in my life was finishing the Henderson project on schedule. That felt like a lifetime ago now. Emma followed me inside without a word. I locked the door behind us, threw the deadbolt, checked the windows. Old habits from when she was little, when checking locks was just part of being a dad. Now it felt like preparation for siege. "Dad," Emma said quietly, standing in the middle of the living room in her soaked dress, mascara smudged under her eyes. "I need you to tell me what's happening. Right now." "Fair enough." I pulled out the crumpled paper from my pocket, smoothed it on the coffee table under the lamp. We'd both read it at the restaurant, but there was more here than just the warning. Details I hadn't fully processed in those desperate seconds before everything went sideways. "Look at this," I said, pointing to the address scrawled at the bottom. "Southeast Seattle. Someone wants us to go there." "Who was that man, Dad? Why did he—" Her phone buzzed on the coffee table where she'd set it down. Ryan's name lit up the screen. His photo smiling up at us, that engagement photo from 6 months ago, when everything had seemed so perfect. Emma reached for it. "Don't," I said. "Dad, I have to. He's probably worried sick." The fire alarm, us disappearing. Let him worry. The words came out harder than I'd intended. "Emma, that man at the restaurant told us to check your accounts. Check everything. Before we do anything else, before we talk to Ryan, I need you to look at your bank accounts." She stared at me like I'd lost my mind. "My bank accounts, Dad. What does that have to—" "Huh? Please." I was begging now, and I didn't care. "Just look. If I'm wrong, if I'm completely crazy, then we'll call Ryan and apologize and figure out what to do about the fire alarm. But if I'm right—" I couldn't finish that sentence. Didn't want to. The phone buzzed again. Second call. Emma looked at it, then at me, then at the note on the table with its shaky handwriting and desperate plea. Something in her face shifted. Maybe she was remembering how Ryan had insisted on handling all the paperwork. Maybe she was thinking about how fast everything had moved. Maybe she was just trusting her father one more time. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." She grabbed her laptop from her bag, fingers trembling as she opened it. The screen's glow made her face look pale, haunted. She pulled up her bank's website, typed in her password. The phone buzzed a third time. Neither of us answered it. "I'm in," Emma said, her voice tight. "What am I looking for?" "See, anything unusual. Transactions you don't recognize. Changes you didn't authorize." She clicked through to her checking account. scrolled down the recent activity. Everything looks normal. Groceries, gas, dinner last week at... She stopped scrolling. What? I leaned closer. There's a pending transaction. Her voice had gone flat. Scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. How much? She didn't answer. Just turned the laptop toward me. $65,000. Scheduled transfer to an account I didn't recognize, a string of numbers that meant nothing. But the authorization signature that was Emma's digital signature. The same one she used for everything official. I didn't do this, Emma whispered. Dad, I swear I would never... I know, sweetheart, I know. But my blood had gone cold. $65,000. That was most of her savings, the money she'd been carefully building since she'd started her career, the emergency fund I'd taught her to maintain. Might you click on the details, I said. She did. The transaction details loaded. Authorization date 3 days ago. 3 days into her marriage. The digital signature was definitely hers. I could see the certificate ID, the timestamp, everything that made it legally binding. The insurance papers. Emma breathed. 3 days ago, Ryan brought home a stack of forms. Said we needed to update everything now that we were married. Beneficiary forms, insurance policies. He had his laptop, said he'd handle the digital signatures since I was tired. Her voice was rising now, panic bleeding through. I signed them on his computer. He said it was easier that way. I trusted him. The phone buzzed a 4th time. What else? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Check everything. Savings, investments, anything you've got. Her fingers flew over the keys, clicking through accounts, while I watched over her shoulder. Each screen loaded like a punch to the gut. Savings account. New restrictions added 3 days ago. Required secondary authorization for any withdrawals over $500. The secondary authorizer, Ryan Mitchell. Investment portfolio beneficiary, changed from me, her father, the person she'd named when she'd opened the account at 22, to Ryan Mitchell. Changed 3 days ago. Life insurance policy through her work, beneficiary updated. 3 days ago. Every single change bore her digital signature. Every single change was dated within 72 hours of her saying, I do. Oh, this isn't possible. Emma was shaking now, her voice cracking. I signed insurance forms, standard stuff, not this. Not. She looked at me, and for the first time since she was a little girl, I saw her completely lost. Dad, what is this? I thought about the old man's note. 3 women. They die in accidents. I thought about how fast everything had moved. 6 months from first date to wedding. I thought about Ryan's face in that alley, the cold calculation, the predator's patience. This wasn't random, I said quietly, more to myself than to her. This was surgical, professional, planned. The phone buzzed a 5th time, then a 6th, 7th. Emma stared at it. What if he knows? What if running away told him that we know something's wrong, and then we need to know more before we talk to him? We need to understand what we're dealing with. 8th call. Emma's hand hovered over the phone, years of conditioning, telling her to answer, to be the good wife, to smooth things over. Amita, I said, my voice as serious as it had ever been. Look at that screen. Look at what's been done to your accounts. She looked, really looked. And I watched the last piece of innocence crumble from her face. Her phone went quiet. The silence felt heavier than the buzzing had. Dad, she whispered, and her voice was shaking now. Really shaking. What if running was the worst thing we could have done? What if he knows we know? What if... She couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Because we both understood now. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't overreaction. This was real. The man my daughter had married 3 weeks ago had spent those 3 weeks systematically taking control of every dollar she owned. And if that old man's note was right, the accidents came next. The phone lit up with a ninth call. Neither of us reached for it. "We have to go, now." The words were out before I'd fully formed them. But Emma's question had crystallized everything. If Ryan realized we suspected him, we'd lose the only advantage that old man's warning had given us. The address on that folded paper wasn't just information, it was our lifeline. And every second we hesitated felt like it was burning through my pocket. 10 minutes later, we were in my truck. Emma's overnight bag lay half-zipped in the back seat. I told her to pack light and move fast. Ryan had called twice while she grabbed essentials. We'd watched his name flash across her screen like a threat and let it ring out. The address led us into a part of Seattle where hope seemed thin and houses leaned close together against the October cold. The 30-minute drive carried us through streets that grew quieter, darker, emptier. Emma sat rigid beside me, her phone clutched in both hands. By the time we turned onto the final street, Ryan had called 3 more times. Each one went to voicemail. The house stood on a narrow lot, its silver paint glowing pale in our headlights. A chain-link fence enclosed a carefully tended garden, roses still blooming, a vegetable patch recently worked. Someone here valued details in a neighborhood where most yards had surrendered years ago. Before I could knock, the porch light flicked on. The door opened to reveal the elderly man from the restaurant, the one who'd slipped that paper into my hand hours earlier. In proper light, he looked about 65, silver hair, combed back eyes, carrying a sorrow I'd only seen once before, when I had to tell a client their son wouldn't be coming home from Afghanistan. "Mr. Blake," he said calmly. "Emma, please come in." The fact that he knew our names sent a chill through me. Inside, the house was modest but immaculate. Hardwood floors gleamed under warm lamplight. Old furniture well cared for. Lemon polish and fresh coffee lingered in the air, but it was the living room walls that made Emma gasp. Photographs, dozens, arranged in neat rows like a museum display. Young women all about Emma's age, captured in moments of joy, weddings, graduations, mountain hikes, beach vacations. Each picture labeled with a name and dates in careful handwriting. "My name is Henry Foster," the old man said, gesturing for us to sit. His hands trembled faintly as he poured coffee from a waiting carafe. "I know this seems impossible, but everything I'm about to tell you is documented." He moved to the first photograph, a brunette in a white wedding dress smiling at the camera. "Lauren King. She married your son-in-law 10 years ago." He placed a marriage certificate on the table. 6 months later, she died. Carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty furnace in their rental home. Ruled accidental. He laid out the death certificate stamped by a Seattle medical examiner. Then a property transfer deed. Lauren's inherited house investment accounts. Life insurance, everything passing to Ryan Mitchell. $425,000. Kayla Roberts. He gestured to a blonde in hiking gear on what looked like Mount Rainier. 7 years ago. Married 8 months. She fell during a routine climb on a trail she'd done dozens of times. Authorities ruled it an accident. Another marriage certificate. Another death certificate. Another transfer. $380,000. Nicole Turner, a redhead in doctoral regalia. 4 years ago. Brilliant research scientist. Married less than a year when she died of an apparent prescription overdose. Toxicology showed opiates mixed with alcohol. $315,000. I did the math automatically. That's 1.12 million. Exactly. Henry's voice held steady, but his eyes shone. Each time the same pattern. Fast romance. Marriage within months. Property transfers completed within weeks, sometimes before the wedding. Then an accident. No clear evidence of foul play. Husband inherits everything. Emma had gone pale. But 3 times. That can't just be coincidence. 4. Henry corrected gently, pulling out a thicker folder. The common link is Ryan's mother, Diana Mitchell. She's worked in the city records department for 17 years. Marriage licenses, death certificates, property transfers. Everything passes through her office. She has access to forged signatures, backdate documents, create paper trails that survive scrutiny. He spread documents across the table, Diana's signature appearing as witness or notary on multiple filings. Bank statements, insurance updates, deeds processed through legitimate channels that gave her both access and opportunity. I spent 2 years tracking the pattern, Henry continued. Diana files paperwork. Ryan marries. Assets transfer usually within 2 weeks. Then within 6 to 18 months, there's an accident. Ryan disappears with the money, lets suspicion fade, then resurfaces with someone new. But why? Emma whispered. Why would a mother help her son? Money. Henry didn't soften it. She takes a cut, likely 40%. On 1.12 million, that's nearly $500,000. Enough to justify silence. He didn't need to finish. I looked at the photos again, not as framed smiles, but as women who had trusted the wrong man. Emma's next, I said. Yes. Henry slid forward another set of documents. Property transfer paperwork dated 3 days after Emma's wedding. Insurance policies updated to name Ryan's sole beneficiary. Expected payout $890,000. Emma's breath hitched. She has more assets than the others, Henry said gently. The house you helped her buy. The stock options from her tech company. Her mother's inheritance. Ryan likely sees her as his largest return yet. Emma's tears fell silently. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. How do you know all this? I asked. How did you know where we'd be tonight? Henry's expression hardened. Because I've been watching Ryan for 2 years. I know his habits, his targets, his timing. He paused. And because I helped him once, the room went still. He stepped to the end of the photo display and tapped a 4th picture, a young woman with dark curls and green eyes laughing at a beach picnic. Amanda Foster, he said quietly. Officially, she died 2 years ago in a single vehicle accident on Interstate 5. Rainy night, car off an embankment. Ryan collected $750,000 from her estate. He looked directly at me, but she didn't die. She survived, and she's been watching him ever since. Dawn broke gray and cold over Seattle. I'd managed maybe an hour of restless sleep on Henry's worn couch, Emma curled in an armchair beneath a blanket he'd given her. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the photographs on his wall, Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, smiling faces frozen before futures were stolen. The phone rang at exactly 6. She wants to meet, Henry said without greeting. His voice was different now, hard, efficient. 15 minutes from here. A diner. 6:30. Emma was awake before I ended the call. Amanda. I nodded. Time for answers. The diner sat where an aging industrial strip met tired residential blocks. Nancy's 24-hour cafe glowed beneath a flickering neon sign. The kind of place shift workers used and nobody asked questions. Nancy's silver hair in a tight bun poured coffee without comment. We took a back booth. Emma wrapped both hands around her mug like she could warm herself from the inside out. At 6:32, the door chimed. The woman who stepped in looked nothing like the vibrant figure in Henry's photograph. That version of Amanda had been bright laughing. This one moved carefully, dressed in neutral clothes, shoulders slightly hunched, as if shrinking from notice. But when she slid into the booth across from us, I saw it in her eyes, wariness carved deep. The look of someone who had survived something monstrous. Mr. Blake, Emma. Her voice was quiet but steady. I'm Amanda Foster. Up close, she was mid-30s. A faint scar traced above her collar. How do I know that? I asked. How do I know you're not working for Ryan? She didn't react. She simply pulled down her collar. The scar began at her jaw and ran down her neck, pale and unmistakable. Because he did this, she said, and he believes I'm dead. She let the fabric fall and took a sip of coffee. When she spoke again, her tone was level, rehearsed by repetition. 2 years ago, I married Ryan Mitchell. He was charming, attentive, everything I thought I wanted. We met at a tech conference. He said he was in real estate development. 3 months later, we were engaged. 6 months later, married. Emma made a small sound. The pattern mirrored her own. 3 months after the wedding, he suggested a road trip. Cascade Loop. Romantic getaway. Highway 2 towards Stevens Pass. Her hands tightened around the mug. He'd tampered with the brakes and the steering column. When I tried to turn, nothing responded. The car went through the guardrail and rolled down an embankment. You survived, I said quietly. Barely. I was thrown partly through the windshield. That's how this happened. Her fingers brushed the scar. I remember hanging there bleeding. I remember seeing Ryan walk around the car. He looked at me for maybe 10 seconds. Emma whispered, "He checked if you were dead." He walked away, Amanda confirmed. Up the embankment. A car was waiting on the road. He got in and they drove off. Nancy refilled our mugs and disappeared again. I crawled into the trees before I passed out. A hiker found me 2 hours later. EMTs said 30 more minutes, and I wouldn't have made it. But you let everyone think you died, I said. I was admitted as Jane Doe. No ID. By the time I could speak, I understood what he'd done. If Ryan knew I survived. She shook her head. So I stayed dead. Let the paperwork stand. Recovered under a different name. And when I was strong enough, I started watching. For 2 years, Emma said softly. I tracked his pattern. Watched him court a woman in Spokane she moved before he secured her. Watched him test the waters in Portland. Then I saw your wedding announcement. She looked at Emma with quiet recognition. I knew you were next. That's when I contacted Henry. I leaned back. Henry Foster. How do you know him? Amanda set a thick folder on the table. It carried the weight of months, clippings, documents, photographs, notes. Diana Mitchell isn't the mastermind, she said. She handles paperwork. Well paid, but not in charge. She flipped to a section marked in red. Driver's licenses, property filings, court records, different names, same face. The face of the man who'd warned me. Vincent Shaw, Amanda said. Real estate developer. Supposedly legitimate. But he's run this operation for 15 years under different identities in different cities. He recruits men like Ryan, charming, cold, willing to kill. He handles logistics and takes 70%. Diana is just one of several employees on payroll across the Northwest. My stomach tightened. If he profits from this, if he's running it, why warn us? That's the question. Amanda met my gaze. Why would Vincent Shaw jeopardize everything to save Emma? She slid out one last photograph. Grainy but clear. Vincent Shaw, younger, standing beside a teenage girl. Melissa Shaw, Amanda said quietly. Vincent's daughter. Died 23 years ago in what was ruled an accidental overdose. She'd been married 6 months. Her husband inherited everything. The pieces fell together. The man who called himself Henry Foster. Amanda continued, that's just another alias, another role. The grieving father. The helpful witness. Emma's hand tightened around mine. The photographs on his wall, real victims. Real paperwork. Real deaths. But he curated that display. She pushed the folder fully toward me. The man who warned you about Ryan's pattern. The man who showed you evidence and offered sanctuary. Her voice dropped. That was Vincent Shaw. Silence stretched between us, broken only by the hum of refrigerators and the faint clink of dishes behind the counter. I pictured the silver-haired man opening his door before I knocked, the sorrow in his eyes, the careful precision with which he'd laid out those documents. "He's been running the machine for 15 years, Amanda said. Recruiting killers, laundering profits, cleaning records, and now I asked. And now she replied, I think he's trying to dismantle it. Emma stared at the photograph of Melissa Shaw. Because of her, Amanda nodded once. He lost his daughter the same way he's helped others lose theirs. Somewhere along the line, guilt caught up. Or he's playing a longer game, I said. That's possible, Amanda admitted. But he contacted me first. Said he was done. Said he wanted to end it before Ryan killed again. Emma's voice trembled. So he warned us. Yes, and Ryan doesn't know. Not yet, Amanda said. If he suspects, he'll vanish. Vincent knows that. That's why everything has to move carefully. I looked down at the folder at years of documentation, layered in ink and signatures. So we've been hiding in the house of the man who built the trap, I said. Amanda held my gaze steadily. Yes, and you think he's trying to stop the monster he helped create? She nodded. Outside, the gray morning brightened slightly, though no warmth came with it. Emma's thumb traced the edge of her mug. If Vincent Shaw really wants to end this, she said softly, then he's going to have to bring down his own son. Amanda's expression didn't change, and that she said is exactly what he intends to do. The coffee in my hand suddenly tasted like betrayal. I turned slowly, already knowing what I would see. At the table directly beside ours, the one I had barely noticed when we sat down, was the man who had called himself Henry Foster. He had been there the entire time, listening, waiting. You've been playing us, I said, my voice flat. The elderly posture vanished. He straightened, and the illusion dissolved. His shoulders no longer stooped. His eyes were sharp, not roomy. Even his voice when he spoke carried no tremor. Guilty, Vincent Shaw said smoothly. But I also saved your daughter's life. At least for now. Emma's hand found mine under the table, her grip tight. Why, Amanda asked quietly. Why reveal yourself now? We could have walked away believing Henry was just another grieving father. Because we're past subtlety, Vincent replied. And because Bob needs to understand the choice in front of him. I'm not making any deals with you, I said. You haven't heard the terms. He leaned back comfortably. I've been running operations in the Pacific Northwest for 15 years. Tech executives, federal contractors, people with complex estates and clean public profiles. 1 or 2 cases a year, different cities spaced out enough to avoid patterns. The FBI has a file on me. It's thin. He gestured dismissively. Diana Mitchell, on the other hand, is sloppy. 4 victims in 10 years, same region. Greedy. Property transfers 3 days after a wedding that draws federal attention. And federal attention in Seattle is bad for my interests elsewhere. So you want her removed, Amanda said. I need her removed. But I can't do it directly. If she disappears, I'm the first suspect. However, he smiled, a concerned father uncovering a murder conspiracy. That's civic responsibility. You manipulated everything I said. The warning, the house, the photographs, Amanda. Vincent saved me, Amanda said quietly. I turned to her. 2 years ago, I should have died on that mountain road, she continued. He had someone watching Ryan for separate reasons. When the crash happened, his people pulled me out and got me to a hospital. I survived because I agreed to help when he called in the favor. I gave you information, Vincent said. You chose how to act. You ran from the restaurant. You came to the house. You believed what you saw. I opened doors, and now I asked. You expect me to take Diana down for you. I expect you to save your daughter. He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward us. A live feed. Ryan's car parked outside a building I knew too well, Emma's apartment complex. He's been circling since midnight, Vincent said calmly. He knows something is wrong. Diana will give the order within 24 hours. Maybe less. Emma went pale. You have two options, Bob Vincent continued. Option 1. You work with me. We expose Diana completely. I provide additional evidence, things Amanda doesn't have. You take it to authorities. Diana goes to prison. Ryan follows. Your daughter lives. I disappear. And option 2. You refuse. You go to the police with what you have now. It's not enough for murder, maybe financial fraud at best. Diana and Ryan panic. They accelerate. And Emma becomes victim number 5. He stood buttoning his coat with precise calm. You have until 7 a.m. tomorrow. That's when Diana moves regardless. I know her patterns. And if I turn you in instead, I asked. Vincent smiled faintly. Henry Foster doesn't exist. The house you visited has already been scrubbed. You can try, but time spent chasing me is time Ryan uses planning your daughter's accident. He stepped toward the door. Amanda followed silently. At the threshold, he paused. Choose wisely, Bob. My way, Diana goes to prison. Your way. He shrugged. Ryan finishes what he started. The door chimed behind them. Through the window, I watched Amanda slide into the driver's seat of a black sedan, Vincent beside her. They merged smoothly into morning traffic. Nancy returned, topped off our coffee, and left the check face down. The fluorescent lights buzzed. A low radio played classic rock. The world continued as if nothing had shifted. Dad. Emma's voice trembled. What do we do? I watched the sedan disappear around a corner. 24 hours. The sun climbed higher, stretching shadows across the parking lot. 24 hours to decide whether to make a deal with a crime boss or risk my daughter's life. Two predators. Both dangerous. Both wanting the other gone. Vincent had called Diana sloppy, greedy, drawing attention. He had also made one mistake. He had assumed I would choose between them. But maybe the way to beat two hunters wasn't to ally with one. Maybe it was to turn them on each other. I looked at Emma, brave, frightened, alive. I think I said slowly, we let them believe we're choosing. Her brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means we make Vincent think we're working with him. We make Diana think we're running scared. And we give both of them just enough truth to make them doubt each other. Emma stared at me, understanding dawning. Divide them, she whispered. Yes. Vincent relied on patterns. Diana relied on paperwork. Ryan relied on control. If we disrupted all three at once, maybe they'd turn inward instead of outward. 24 hours. Enough time to set a trap, but only if we moved first. Nancy's check sat between us. The world outside brightened with indifferent sunlight. I reached for my phone. First, I said we call Vincent back. Emma swallowed. And tell him what? That we're in. Her eyes searched mine. Are we? No, I said quietly. We're just making him think we are. Outside traffic thickened with morning commuters, unaware that somewhere between them, two criminal operations were preparing to move. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something that wasn't fear, strategy. For hours, I wrestled with Vincent's ultimatum. Every choice felt like betrayal of justice of the victims of my own conscience. By noon, I realized I'd been asking the wrong question. The problem wasn't which predator to help. It was how to trap them both. I paced my living room 28 feet I'd measured and built myself 15 years ago. Emma sat curled in Sarah's old reading chair, watching me wear a path in the carpet. Ryan had stopped calling around 10 a.m. That silence felt more threatening than the ringing ever had. You're not actually considering helping Vincent, Emma said. No, but I am considering making him think I am. She straightened. A double cross? More like a triple cross. We need evidence against both Vincent and Diana. Real evidence. The kind that can't be dismissed or buried. Diana's office, Emma said. That's where the records would be. City Records building downtown, 4th floor. Diana works in property and transfer. I pulled up the building on my phone. Standard security keycards, cameras, night guard. Emma came to stand beside me. If we could expose both of them at once, publicly, we need witnesses. I finished her thought. Thousands of witnesses. My phone rang. Amanda. I put it on speaker. Tell me you're calling to help. Both, maybe. Her voice was strained. Vincent thinks you're taking his deal. I have maybe 12 hours before he expects a decision. We're not taking his deal. I know. That's why I'm calling. Background noise suggested somewhere public. Diana's office, 4th floor, room 412. She works late Tuesdays and Thursdays, never weekends. Security guard Carl does rounds every 40 minutes. Cameras in main corridors, but not individual offices, budget cuts. Cleaning crew finishes by 11 p.m. There's a 10-minute window where the east service door stays propped open for trash removal. Emma was already taking notes. Amanda, I said carefully. Why are you helping us? Long silence. Because Vincent saved my life, but I never agreed to help him destroy someone else's. If you're planning what I think you're planning, maybe this ends. Maybe all of it ends. She hung up. Emma looked at me. Tonight, before Vincent expects an answer, I'll scout the building first. Be downtown by 5, watch the shift change, see Carl's patrol pattern. I checked the clock, 2:47 p.m. Get a sense of the layout, find blind spots. And tomorrow, Emma's voice shook. Vincent's deadline is tomorrow morning. This was the part I'd been dreading. Tomorrow you go back to Ryan. Dad, just for a few hours? Morning coffee? Act like everything's fine, like you overreacted about the restaurant. Take pictures if you can. But mainly, you buy us time. You want me to be bait. I want you to be an actress. The best one he's ever seen. I took her ice-cold hands in mine. By the time he realizes something's wrong, we'll already have what we need. And when we go public, and we will go public, you'll be somewhere safe with witnesses around you. How do we go public in a way they can't stop? I thought about the photos on Vincent's wall, the spreadsheet with Emma's name and a dollar figure beside it. I thought about Lauren King and Kayla Roberts and Nicole Turner, women who died in shadows while the world went on unknowing. Yeah, we make sure the whole world is watching, I said. Live in real time. So many people, there's no way to hide it. Understanding dawned. A live stream. We go into Diana's office, find everything, every file, every victim, every dollar. Document it on camera. Then wait for them to come to us. Vincent, Diana, Ryan, all of them walking into a trap with thousands watching. They'll never let us broadcast from inside. They won't know we're broadcasting until it's too late. I started a voice memo on my phone. This is Bob Blake. October 15th, 2024, 3:02 p.m. My daughter Emma and I are about to expose a criminal conspiracy involving multiple deaths and millions in fraud. If you're hearing this, we've either succeeded or... I stopped, saved it. There's insurance. We document everything, upload it multiple places. Cloud storage, trusted contacts with instructions to release if anything happens. Emma slowly nodded, fear and courage fighting in her expression. If Ryan suspects, I thought about 3 women who'd trusted him, about Amanda's scar, about my daughter's name on that spreadsheet like she was already dead. Then we make sure we act fast enough that it doesn't matter. I checked my watch. Tonight I scout. Tomorrow morning you give the performance of your life. And when we're ready, I looked at my phone. Thought about all the people who could be watching. We fight in the light where everyone can see, where they can't make us disappear. Emma's phone buzzed. A text from Ryan, miss you. Coffee tomorrow, need to talk. Her hands shook as she showed me. Perfect, I said. Tell him yes. 10 a.m., that cafe near his place. Public, lots of people, she typed with trembling fingers. Yes, I'm sorry about the other night. We should talk, 10 a.m. Ryan's reply came instantly. Can't wait. I love you. Emma stared at those 3 words like they were a death sentence. Look, we're going to end this, I told her. Tonight we get evidence. Tomorrow you keep him distracted. Then we bring it all down where everyone can see, Vincent and Diana both. She looked up at me, and I saw her mother in her face, that same stubborn determination. Okay, Emma said. Let's do it. Outside, afternoon sun descended toward evening. Somewhere across the city, Vincent waited for an answer he'd never get. Diana shuffled papers at her desk, business as usual. Ryan planned his next move, thinking he had all the time in the world. They were all wrong. By this time tomorrow, the whole world would know their names, and this time the victims would have witnesses. The afternoon after our break-in, watching Emma prepare to walk back into Ryan's trap, was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We had evidence safely backed up in the cloud files. Photographs, Diana's spreadsheets showing every victim and every dollar. Now we needed to buy time before making our final move. Emma stood before her bedroom mirror, practicing her lines like an actress preparing for opening night. Hey, I'm sorry. My dad just... He panicked, you know. I watched from the doorway, my chest tight. You can still back out. She met my eyes in the reflection. No. Those women, Lauren, Kayla, Nicole, they trusted him completely. That's why they died. I'm walking in there knowing exactly what he is. That's my advantage. She pulled out her phone, stared at Ryan's name in her contacts. 36 hours since she'd last spoken to him. 36 hours he'd been wondering, worrying, possibly planning. She hit dial. Ryan. Her voice was perfect, hesitant, apologetic, young. I'm so sorry. I could hear his voice through the speaker, relief mixed with something else. Something calculating. Emma, thank God. Where are you? I've been losing my mind. Dad had some kind of panic attack. Made me scared of everything. Can we meet? I need to see you. Of course. The cafe, 2 o'clock. Perfect, I'll be there. She hung up and looked at me. He bought it. He wants to believe it, I said. That makes him vulnerable. I followed from a distance, parking across the street, where I had a clear view through the cafe windows. My phone was recording insurance documentation evidence if anything went wrong. Ryan arrived 5 minutes early. Through the window, I watched him choose a table with sight lines to the door, check his phone, twice run his hand through his hair. If I didn't know better, I'd think he was a nervous man in love. Emma walked in at exactly 2 p.m. Ryan stood immediately, his face transforming into perfect concern. He pulled her into a hug that looked tender, protective. She didn't pull away, my brave girl. They sat. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the scene. Emma's body language hesitant, confused, apologetic. Ryan's understanding, forgiving, loving. The perfect husband, whose wife had been temporarily led astray by her overprotective father. He took her hand across the table. She let him. They talked for 20 minutes. Coffee arrived. Emma laughed once, a performance so good I almost believed it myself. Ryan's posture relaxed incrementally. Whatever doubts he'd harbored were being carefully dismantled by my daughter's acting. Then Ryan leaned forward, said something that made Emma nod. He gestured toward the street, toward his apartment building 3 blocks away. She hesitated, perfectly calibrated uncertainty, then agreed. They stood. He paid. His hand settled on the small of her back as they walked out. I waited 30 seconds, then followed. Ryan's apartment was on the 3rd floor of a modern building, all glass and steel, the kind of place that screamed success. I parked where I could see his windows, sent Emma a text, I'm here. You're not alone. 3 dots appeared, then I know. Going in now. The next 2 hours were the longest of my life. Later, Emma would tell me what happened inside. How Ryan had been the perfect host, offered wine, put on music, made her comfortable. How he'd pulled out folders of paperwork, spread them across his glass coffee table. Hiding insurance updates, he'd said. We should finalize these soon. Standard beneficiary changes for married couples. Emma had played confused. This looks complicated. Dear, trust me, it's routine. We just need to complete them within the next few days. She'd pretended to read the forms, while her phone hidden in her purse with the camera lens exposed